if one day you enter a road that from the outside is an ordinary path, but the more you go forward, not only do the exits disappear, but even time seems to stop working. And every time you think you have reached, it starts all over again. Then you understand you are not driving, you are trapped. You are in a damn road that is the driver itself. My name is Ryan. I am not a professional driver. I just sometimes, to escape the crowd of the city, hit the road. It is a kind of peace for me, especially at night. Without traffic, without disturbance, just me, my car, and a long playlist. That night also started like any other night. My goal was just a simple drive. I exited the highway and entered a side road that was not very clear on the GPS. Honestly, I just wanted to discover a new route. Name of the road, Highway 47A. At first, it was like any other ordinary road. Trees on both sides, gentle curves, even a few signs that showed the exit route to nearby villages. But after a few minutes, everything started to change. The first thing that caught my attention was the repetition of the scenery. Both sides of the road were still full of trees, but a familiar feeling told me that I had seen these trees before. At first, I thought they were just similar, but a specific tree with a broken branch leaning toward the road appeared for the second time. Suomo. Then a sign that said rest stop, 3 miles, exactly like the previous one. I smiled and said, it must be a loop road. I will return to the main road. But I drove 4 kilometers. The exit sign did not appear. The GPS was cut. It only said, searching for signal. Slowly a feeling settled in my gut. The feeling that the path was no longer in my control. My distance with rationality was getting shorter. A specific song from my playlist was playing, the same one I had heard before. The song finished and started again from the beginning. Neither the playlist changed nor the player restarted. Just repetition. That was when I became sure. I was not on a normal route. The road was repeating me. My breath had become heavy. I felt I must leave the road, in any way possible. With my eyes I searched for an exit, a dirt path, a side road, even a break in the trees. But there was nothing. Only a straight path. And after a few minutes, the same previous sign again, rest stop, 3 miles. I said maybe my mind is playing with me, so I decided to stop the car. I pulled over, turned it off. Everything was quiet. I got out. The air had become cold. I ran my hand over the roof of the car and said to myself, everything is fine, just rest. That moment was when the rustling sound came from inside the trees. At first I thought it was an animal, but no, its sound had rhythm. Not running, not jumping, more like walking. Slow, steady, and exactly toward me. I quickly got into the car, started it, pressed the gas and returned to the road. But the road was still continuing. No exit, no change, no sign of an ending. Only one thing had changed. The sign now said, rest, stop. 2 miles. The car was moving forward in complete silence. Only the sound of the tires on the asphalt and the static of the radio, which now was not playing music at all. Only noise. A continuous noise that, with every meter of driving, somehow became similar to the sound of breathing, in a way that you could not understand whether it came from the speaker or from behind your neck. I looked again at the odometer. Since the moment I entered this road, I had been driving for at least 40 minutes. But I had only traveled 19 kilometers? Impossible. I started whispering to myself, calm down, Ryan. It is just a software mistake. Or maybe the GPS is messed up. But no app on my phone would open. Not the map, not calls, not messages, not even the charge light. Everything seemed stuck in a frozen state. Meanwhile, a faint light appeared from far away. I thought maybe it is a gas station, or a real rest stop, or even a farm. The light got closer, a silhouette of a building beside the road appeared. A square, short building with a sloped roof. A small lamp above its door was lit. I pressed the brakes. The car stopped. I got out. The smell of the air had changed, the smell of burnt diesel along with a trace of dampness, or maybe rot. I went closer. On the sign above the door it was written, "Rest stop, welcome." But one thing was strange. The sign was old, not only covered in dust, but as if no one had stopped there for years. I put my hand toward the doorknob. It was cold. So cold that it felt like something from the other side of the door was sucking the warmth from my hand. With hesitation, I opened the door. The hinges turned with a screaming sound, and the door opened with a tremble. Inside, it was dark. The only source of light was that dim yellow lamp above the door that could barely light the first few steps. I activated the phone's flashlight from my pocket, which was strange, because the phone was turned off until a moment before. I pointed the light inside. It was a small hall, like an old waiting room of bus stations. 2 rusted metal chairs, a turned-off heater half sticking out of the wall, and a board written with marker. "Sit, don't think, just wait." That's all. No cellar, no refreshments, nothing. For a moment, I wanted to go back, but there was something in the air. A heaviness, as if I turned back, I would lose a chance, or maybe something was following me. I sat on one of the chairs. The sound of metal squeezing under my weight echoed in the space. I tried not to think, but the more I tried, the more my mind filled with questions. Where am I? Why does the road not end? Who wrote this board? That was when I heard the footsteps. From behind the building, slow, uniform, like the steps of someone who knows exactly where they are going. I turned my eyes toward the sound. I pointed the flashlight toward the back door. There was no door, only an empty frame, and behind it, absolute darkness. The footsteps stopped, like it was standing exactly behind that frame. I lowered the light to let my eyes adjust, and in that darkness I saw something. 2 eyes, shining, still. At that moment all the lights went off. The lamp, the flashlight, even the phone screen. And in the absolute darkness, I heard only the breathing of someone who was very close. His breathing was not calm. It was deep, heavy, dragged, as if every time he breathed, he swallowed the air around me. My hand was shaking. I searched for the phone. I pressed the power button several times. Nothing happened. Light? No, not even a ticking sound. The device was dead. I was sitting there. I could not move. It was as if my body had gone with the light. Only the sounds remained. A second sound began. A moaning sound. Not human, not animal. Something between the two. Like someone trying to speak, but its tongue is not of our kind. The footsteps became loud, now fast, strong, running toward me. I did not want to see. I did not want to know who it was. I just jumped, fell to the floor, and threw myself outside the building. The door was left open, the light of the car in the fog. I ran, opened the door, got in, and started. The car started, without any problem. Even the radio returned. But the radio, instead of music, played a sound that froze me. It was my own voice. Sit, don't think, just wait. The sound of the tires on the road was now different. It was not smooth. The sound of crushing leaves, the sound of wet soil, the sound of something breaking under the tires. I looked at the odometer. It was still on 19 kilometers. And the sign beside the road, for the 5th time, it showed the same writing. Rest stop, 3 miles. But this time, one new sentence was added, written in red. Welcome back, Ryan. If you are still with me, do not forget the like. Not for support, but so I know you are still here, and the road has not completely swallowed me. When I saw the sign, welcome back, Ryan, my body started shaking, but this time, not from fear, from awareness. A voice in the back of my mind said, you have been here before, maybe not tonight, maybe not with this car, but before. My legs were frozen, but my hand turned the wheel and I returned to the road. My brain ordered escape, but my body surrendered. I drove in silence. No sound. Even the radio was off. Only darkness. Only the headlights like a lantern. But something was different. Until now I was only on the road. But now I felt the road was inside me. My mind became heavy. Thoughts began to repeat. I imagined myself walking on the road, not driving. I saw myself from above, like security cameras. No car, only me, my clothes. A backpack I did not know when was placed on my back. And one more thing, a shadow behind me, at a fixed distance, step by step. Suddenly I hit the brakes. I returned to myself. No, I was still in the car. But the footsteps were in my ears. Not outside, inside the car. I slowly turned my gaze toward the back seat. There was no one, but the middle seat belt was fastened. From fear, I let go of the wheel for a moment. The car swerved. It almost hit the trees on the side of the road, but with struggle, I regained control. I told myself I must stop. I must get out of this nightmare. I saw ahead a faint light. Again the same building, the same rest stop. But this time, something was different. Another car was parked there, a black SUV with the rear door open. I stopped. My breaths were short. I got out. I stepped toward it. Inside the car there was no one, but the driver's seat was full of blood. My hand, unconsciously, went toward the back seat. There was a notebook. On it, written with a red pen, it said, "If you found this, it is too late." I flipped through a few pages. The handwritings looked like my own. Not exactly Pateklis, but too familiar. There was a page in the middle of the notebook that only had one sentence. "How many are you who become one with this road?" There was also a map attached, a circular path, endless, like a snake swallowing itself. And under it, it was written, "If you think there is a way to escape, you are mistaken. You do not die here, you stay here." A sigh came from behind me. I turned back. There was no one. But the door of my own car was open, and the radio was on. A muffled voice from an unknown woman. "Get back in the car, Ryan. The road is waiting." When that woman's sentence played from the radio, "Get back in the car, Ryan," I froze, deeply, from inside. Because not only was the voice familiar, but the tone was like someone who knows me. The rear door of the car was still open. The notebook in my hand felt heavier than before. Its pages were not yellow, not rotten, but they smelled old. And the handwriting, not perfect, but like handwriting I practiced years ago, learning to sign. I returned toward my car. My breath steamed in the cold, dark air. Everything was silent, except the radio, now playing a familiar song. A specific song, the one we played at my mother's funeral. I sat behind the wheel. The car was still on. The odometer, 19 kilometers. The time, 12:13 a.m. The same time as the beginning, even though 1 hour had passed. I said, I must get out of this road. Even if I go back, it does not matter. Just get out. I pressed the gas, but the road, like before, was endless, twisting and stretching. I drove for a few minutes until I saw something that looked like a branch. A turn to the left. The road became narrower, but it was an exit, a hope. Without thinking, I turned the wheel and entered the path. But once I passed the turn, the same scene appeared before me. Rest stop 3 miles. And below it, welcome back, Ryan. But this time, a new sentence added. You can't leave what you built. For a moment, everything made sense. Not fully, but one piece fell into place. Maybe this road is not a nightmare. Maybe it is a world I built. An endless loop of something I refused to accept. A memory came to my mind. 2 years ago, my wife, in a car accident, was lost. I was behind the wheel. I told myself it was not my fault. Slippery road, low light, sleep. But maybe this road is built by my mind to live forever with that lie. The headlights fell on something in the middle of the road. A person, tall, light clothing, face hidden in darkness. I stopped. My breaths were fast. I stepped out slowly. Carefully I approached. When only a few steps remained, he turned. His face was my face. Tired, thinner, aged 1,000 years. He whispered, "Welcome to the road, my new version." And he disappeared before my eyes. With trembling legs, I returned to the car. I sat behind the wheel. I said nothing. I thought nothing. Only driving, only silence, only repetition. Now it is your turn. If one day you reach a road you cannot escape from, will you surrender? Or like me, will you just continue? With a hope you do not know is real or not. Leave me a comment, because maybe you see a path that I do not. I was no longer searching for an exit, because I understood the road is like an ocean. When you are in the middle, borders and land mean nothing. Only wave after wave, curve after curve. The silence of the car became part of me, the engine sound, a second heartbeat. Every once in a while, a familiar sign. Rest stop, 3 miles. But I did not even bother to stop, because stopping is just another form of being trapped. Time had no meaning. I did not know how many hours, how many nights. My hair had grown, my beard too, or maybe only a mind trick. For a moment, an image of my daughter, her hands reaching toward me, and the voice of my wife. "Ryan, please wake up." I stopped. I did not breathe. I stepped out of the car. Head through the fog, a light like a house. For the first time, I felt the road was showing, not hiding. I walked toward the light. A wooden cabin, small. Sloped roof, inside lit, windows frosted. I reached the door. My hand trembled. No bell. I knocked. No one opened. But the door opened by itself. And inside, it was full of pictures. The walls covered with images of my life. Me and my wife, me at the funeral, me alone behind the wheel. Even pictures of this very road trip. But the strangest was one picture on the table. Me behind the wheel, with a vague object on the back seat, looking into the mirror. My back tingled. I turned toward the door. But the cabin no longer had a door. A voice from behind me. "Look how well you built it, Ryan." I turned. A man stood there, the same face as mine, but clearer, eyes empty. He smiled. You built this world to escape pain, but no escape is eternal. Your wife and daughters are still out there, in life. And you are still in a coma. Silence. Heavy. Everywhere. I asked, I am in a coma. He said, you are stuck between two worlds, and this road is the shape of your mind. Unless you decide to return. With a broken voice, I asked, how? His hand on my shoulder. You must die here to wake up there. The light dimmed, everything trembled, walls collapsed. Only one sentence in my mind. They are still calling me. I close my eyes. Okay, I will return. A deep sound, a heavy strike. Silence. A soft sound. The ECG. A doctor. Heartbeat is back. We got him. He's back. I open my eyes. White hospital light. My wife. My daughter. Tears. I smiled. They held my hand. I returned from an endless road, and now I want to stay.